See, when I was a kid, making a movie was a big deal. It wasn't just picking up a phone and just pointing at whatever you wanted. You actually had to try to get into a big studio. It was a big deal. Universal Studios it was all about ride the movies. They had MGM, Disney, Hollywood Studios, MGM Studios. It was a big deal. Making a movie was a big deal. That's why they had to make theme parks around it, and it was a big deal. I used to watch movies and wanted to either be a part of the movie making process or in the movies, uh, one or the other. And I remember even going to auditions when I was a kid, and my parents said, "Well, we can hook you up with this agent, and you could do this, or you can get Sega Channel." And I turned it down for Sega Channel. That's beside the point. But I always talked about wanting to make movies with my friends. I lived in Colorado, and we always wanted to do that. The intention was I was going to be going to the Art Institute of Colorado, and so that was the plan. However, one day with all my buddies, we were all going to go. Um, One day, I went to sleep on the couch in my house in Colorado, and I woke up because that's teenager stuff. You stay out really late, come home, sleep on the couch. When I came home, when I woke up the next morning, it was really early. It was a weekend, but I woke up early. I think my dad woke me up because they were all up and about doing stuff. And he told me that he was selling the house and we were moving to Florida. And he was enrolling me in a school that I didn't even know existed. It was a school in Orlando called Full Sail. And he thought that it would be a benefit because my mom loved Disney, I loved Disney, and I was having a hard time driving at the time, learning how to drive, not knowing that I had a learning disability that would hinder that a little bit. That's later on. But he thought, oh, well, the driving's going to be a lot better in Florida than it is in Colorado. That wasn't necessarily the case. But besides that, went down to, I remember as soon as I was done with high school, we went to this house that we've never seen before, that my mom pretty much, now back in the day, ordering a house online, and this was around 2001, wasn't really done very often. But she bought one online, as well as she found her job online. Everything was done online. My dad was turning to his business, his company, and he said, I'm moving to Florida. Either you can fire me or give me a remote position." And they said, "Okay, we'll give you a remote position." And that, at the time, was very unheard of. So we all moved to Florida, and I went to Full Sail. And I thought immediately, if you go to Full Sail and go to a film school, as soon as you do that, you're going to end up in the film industry. Not necessarily. Most of the people that were already going to Full Sail had hookups in the industry, and all they needed to do was just go to school, and then they would have a job already. I wasn't in that position. However, my eccentricities, my strange imagination, and my bizarre personality seemed to pay off in some strange way, because some of my at least in the 16 millimeter film class, I don't think they have those anymore, but the classes, it was every month was a different class because it was very rapid, it was very fast. The whole thing was done within like 2 years. Everything was super quick. But one of the classes was, you have 16 millimeter film production, then you had 32 millimeter film production. All the classes and all the different elements of film were slowly getting phased out while I was in that program because it was a film and video production class. Because some of the people in my class that I met, they didn't want to be in film. They wanted to be in video production. Which would be teaching you how to make TV shows, be a producer in a TV show, and that was getting phased out completely. And so probably by now they don't even have 16 millimeter or 35. Now, if you were to go to Full Sail, they have a full backlot. So things have changed a little bit. But one of my scripts actually got selected for the 16 millimeter film class. It was called Grandpa, and hence it was called Grandpa. And it was about just an eccentric grandpa who kind of he hallucinates, and he says that he thinks he sees a mysterious figure. Daughter thinks that he's just having war flashbacks, but in all reality, he does actually see this figure. Long story short, he's kind of like a death figure, and he comes to take her, and the granddaughter actually sees him, and it's a little twisty. It's got humor. It's strange, and strangely enough, they actually cast a young man in the role. And they just tried to, because they just liked how he acted, and because we got to audition people, and but different people direct the films. Strangely enough, this guy did not look like a grandpa. I think I've got it somewhere, but yeah, he didn't look like a grandpa. But I didn't, just like in high school, I didn't really make a lot of friends right away because I'm just quirky. I remember starting film school looking, because I was still in my goth phase, so I was completely decked out in goth attire, starting school with my giant goth boots, goth shoes, and everyone else was like kind of looking more kind of like collegey, and I might have stuck out like a sore thumb a little bit. But so that was my first taste of making a script. While it seemed to go well to some degree, it didn't go any further than our screening, our graduate screening showcase at the Enzion Theater, which is, if you have never been there, it's in Orlando. Fantastic theater. They have food. It's got more of like a lounge kind of feel, and it's really big and awesome. So after that, I thought, okay, well, I had a movie made in 16 millimeter. Well, my script didn't get to really direct it because we do rotating direction. The directors rotate. 35 millimeter, I would much rather wanted to direct, fully direct, because in 35 you get to direct. So I auditioned to direct in 35 millimeter, which is weird. You're paying to go to school. You want the full experience. You don't get the full experience. So you have to interview to direct in 35 millimeter. At the time, that's how it was. And I picked the love story, but I wanted to make it edgy, and that was my pitch. You actually had to go to your instructor, tell them what your pitch was, and they pick you. And I hate getting picked. I'm never one to get picked at anything. I'm not. If there's a voting, if there's any kind of situation where I have to be voted for, I'm going to lose. If there's any kind of situation where there's going to be a contest, no. That's why I don't do Kickstarters. I'm always going to lose that for some reason. I'm too left of center. So when I went to go audition, I didn't get that. But I was pissed off because I'm paying for this. I should get an opportunity to direct. Just like I had the opportunity to write. So after I graduate film school, I go to the placement office, my advisor. And when you go to Full Sail, they say that it's 100% placement. 100% placement. there's an asterisk by that statement. It's a 100% placement asterisk within the school. Most of the instructors are former graduates. So they say that you're getting industry experience, or industry, you're getting education from real industry experts. That's not necessarily the case. Well, back then it wasn't. And I did not want to work at the school because I did not think that um, I didn't feel right doing that at the time, because I felt like if I wanted someone from the industry teaching me, and I wasn't in the industry, I just felt like it was dishonest to get a job there. I just didn't like that idea. So while that was an option, I didn't want to work there. I wanted to actually work in the industry somehow, just do something. So I was constantly applying for work, and guess what? All those jobs were deferred payment. And if you're unsure what that means, deferred payment means no payment until a project is completely done. So I was going from deferred payment job to deferred payment job, and eventually my dad was kind of saying, because I don't drive, my dad was driving me to all these places, and he said, these are fun and all, but you're going to have to find a job that actually has legitimate payment, because you're going to have to pay back this college soon, because there was the plus loan and the Stafford loan. And that means my parents were responsible for one portion, but I was responsible for the other portion. So even though I was lived close to Publix, they turned me down at the time, because it's very hard to get a job at Publix if you haven't tried before. Publix is a grocery store. Couldn't get a job there. Ended up getting a job several hours away at Disney, and then I left, went to Publix, and ironically, when I was working at Publix, at around that same time, I was starting to work at Halloween Horror Nights. Now, you're thinking, oh my gosh, this is so long-winded. This is how it's finally coming around to how I got a movie in a film in a local theater. Ironically, when I was meeting all the people in my character group, one of which was somebody who was a filmmaker. He just got out of school, UCF, the filmmaking program, and I would talk to him about movies. We just talked all the time. We were zombies in a scare zone at Universal Studios called Deadtropolis, and while it was grueling, it was a lot of fun. And myself and this guy, we struck up a great friendship, and I talked to him about movies, and I told him that I was working on script. Now, ironically, we were working in a horror setting, and we talked about horror a lot. But the script I gave him wasn't horror. It was actually more along the lines of something like David Lynch. It was very strange, surreal, but it was more about. It was strange, surreal, but it was about two things. I think I was going through a breakup at the time, and it was also about how I don't drive, and I lived 6 miles past Alafaya in Orlando. Kind of in Orlando, but near an area known as Bithlo. But the thing is it was in a housing development known as Windsor Grand. But in that housing development, there's this long road, that's East Colonial. And that when you don't drive, you just feel like you're on an island of dirt. There's just absolutely nothing. And so it was called the Road to Trepanation. And trepanation, it sounds like a place, but trepanation actually means lobotomy. And it was just this really surreal Lynchian kind of movie about emotions and drugs and how cars are evil, and a very surreal kind of movie. And he was unsure about it at first, but he really fell in love with the movie. while he fell in love with it, his wife at the time was helping to edit it, and she was actually really sick at the time, but she was helping us make the movie, and the movie actually got completed. We made it, but this isn't the one that got screened in a local theater. No, the movie that got screened in a local theater was actually the follow-up. Now, I did have a sequel idea for him, and it was kind of like a sequel prequel, and it kind of connects all the elements of the beginning and all the elements of the second movie. And it's I love his direction. My buddy Brandon, he did a fantastic job with it, and it was such a fun process. It really was. And his wife, I think he was going through some rough stuff at that time, personal stuff, and that helped. This project helped him as well. When this movie got done, he used his persistence to actually get the movie transferred to 35 millimeter, and he contacted a local theater in Orlando, and we had that movie screened at a local theater. Sometimes all it takes is a little bit of persistence, and if people tell you no, sometimes you have to create your own opportunities, and that's what we did. People would there were some producers that came up, and they were completely shocked. They came up to Brandon, and they said, "How did you get this in the theater?" And he said, I just contacted them, and they were completely shocked. But when they saw the movie itself, they actually said that it reminded them of something like David Lynch, and which is a huge compliment to me. Brandon did a fantastic job with it, and yeah, it was a phenomenal experience. I loved it so much. But ultimately, when I was getting so many no's around that time, I guess some of the things that I left out was the fact that I was sending a lot of scripts out. So during that time of those deferred payments, when I was trying to work on other film scripts, I was sending my own scripts out, and I wasn't getting. Now, sometimes you would get responses, or sometimes you get no responses. Typically, I would get no response, and fortunately, my script was already copywritten, but I would get no response, none whatsoever. So between the deferred payment and the no response, which is no response is worse than a no, because it's like pure indifference. So at that point, my buddy Brandon, when we were able to just make something, and we had so many no's previously, we created our own opportunity. We were selling tickets, and people showed up, and it was such a great experience. So at the end of the day, remember, don't let people stop you from making your dreams come true. I had that dream when I was so young, and I made created my own opportunities. If you see so many closed doors, if opportunity doesn't knock, open the window. Just do what you need to do, and don't stop believing. Don't stop.